Okay, we're going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Laura, could you please take roll?
Abel. Biff Hansen.
Here.
Matthew Phipps.
Here.
Stacy Seldner.
Here.
Matthew Spalding.
Here.
Carrie Trask.
Here.
Tony Glastelka.
Here.
And under report of the superintendent, there's just a brief memo there. Jim will present that.
Yeah, so just to let you know, the McKinley is progressing. You know, we're finished the listing sessions, and now they're planning in terms of what should an alternative, alternative high school look like. And so that's moving right along. We're anticipating that we'll be coming with a recommendation at the next board meeting. So it's just kind of an update that everything's moving, right along. So right now, you kind of see us on track.
And I think Carrie, if you understood this too, it sounds like it's going to, and Lee, that it's going to be moving pretty quickly because we need to set a curriculum in order starting for next year. So it'll be coming to some decisions and planning and recommendation to McKinley.
Yeah, I think the proposal will have some pretty interesting concepts involved, such as project-based learning, a competency-based assessment, and also, a good deal of experiential stuff too. I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. I think it's, but it has to firm up. It has to firm up, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Any questions about the?
Has there been any decision on charter or regular?
No, not yet.
Are we talking to somebody who's?
Well, that was discussed at the building, at the last meeting in the building. And I don't know, it's kind of like, one way or the other. It can be fairly protected, I guess, to survive. I mean, the discussion on the charter thing was, maybe that was maybe that was the better survival mechanism, because it's legal and it would take some doing to kind of undo the contract. And yet, if it was integrated into the school system, it would be, in the fabric, rather than sort of sitting out there. And I think the problem with it sitting out there is that most of us don't know much about it. I mean, I know about it because I was on the board there for a long time, but most people don't know much about it. And that's part of their problem. Nobody, well, what's this McKinley thing? Is this for the kids that just can't cut it anywhere else?
Lee, I was just saying, you want to add a little something about the charter issue?
Yeah, so I think based on my understanding of the agreement, if we were to absolve the charter, it would have had to have been done in the spring. So the charter will be in place for next year as we move forward. At that point, if the board wanted to consider moving away from the charter, it would be a board conversation that would have to take place really by fall, I think, is probably the best time, because then you have time to get your ducks in order to absolve it in the manner in which the agreement lays out.
I think the other thing I would add too is that it sounds like the visioning need to happen first. And so once the board figures out kind of what the program is going to be, and then it would be decided whether a charter is needed to run the program that they need.
So I guess my thought is, who is the person to talk to about a charter? Are there advantages to a charter school over just having a regular programs in a regular school? And I guess that's what I'm looking for, is where's that expert in the state? Is there funding that could be gotten if we stay charter, or do we get?
Yeah, they're all good questions, I think. I don't.
To the funding question, no, not really anymore. That was an initial thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are people either associated with the DPI or others in the state that we could definitely consult with. We did, I know when we were having this conversation originally with the document and the agreement, that there was an attorney that was contacted around some of those parameters and how it would work to do all this. So we definitely know the score on that, but it wouldn't be difficult at all to reach out to someone and ask the advantages. I really don't feel at this point that there's definitely not financial advantage. The one thing with the charter is it offers some flexibility when you're looking at, like the minutes and the days and some of the scheduling things, graduation requirements. And if it was a district program without the charter, they would follow our board policy for graduation, et cetera, have to follow the state minutes, DPI, and all of those sort of things.
The
So,
program could be different.
correct.
The interesting thing is that the people one of the issues at McKinley, and certainly with not just the students but the parents, is the kids at McKinley want to graduate with the Lincoln kids, and yet they're a different tribe under the charter. And I think the interest in being integrated in comes from that. They would have access to more services in a way, and certainly to being part of the graduation in the bowl. I mean, it may not seem too substantial, but I think it is.
We do a lot of creative things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The program and graduation in the bowl, and there's the different programs that our kids come many fewer hours than they used to, but they're all working and gaining that experience.
Oh, sure.
So I guess
That's one of the great things in the city.
if we can do that within a regular, then let's do that. But let's find out from the people who know charters the best.
Sure.
There's other things we can do.
I don't know, but I'm pretty enthusiastic about the kinds of ideas they're working with right now.
Any other questions about more to come?
I got a quick question. So the final say on that, is that going to be a collaborative thing between us and McKinley, or do we?
Go ahead.
So that would be your, it's your decision to charter or not to charter.
I think from my understanding is it's going to be presented to us what the concept is, what the program that they think is best.
Yeah.
And that we would, discuss that accept that or tweak it, whatever we need to be, and then that would be presented to the McKinley board.
Yeah, okay. And I would just like to request, if we can, a list of pros and cons for, if there are, for both options. And obviously, I'm sure we'll get a recommendation, but that'd be helpful.
But we're not gonna take the charter and not to charter off at the same time as we look at the program proposal, right?
Correct, that's my
Yeah.
understanding, yeah.
And
Because-
as he says, the charter thing.
Because the program will,
Yeah.
regardless of the decision of the charter or not to charter, will still be getting in the fall.
Right.
And so really it would be like getting that program in, and whether, so whether the program itself isn't dependent on your decision of to charter or not to charter. So, but I do think, as fall rolls around, would be time to,
So we have some time constraints as far as getting that curriculum, getting that concept, what the design of that's gonna be, to the other board to make sure that they have that, and so staff know what to expect and what to prepare for. But then come fall, that'll be when we start to look at, a charter, something different that really wouldn't kick in into the following year. All right. Okay, next thing is just a real brief update on the preliminary third quarter reading results.
Right, the results, again, like the previous 2 quarters, are looking at really some pretty substantial gains. You also have the document that will be updated when the other schools came in. We just received Jackson. This last quarter, they went up 9%. And so we're still waiting for Washington and Monroe. But the reading results are looking really good. You also have math scores in terms of that document too. So that'll be updated. So you'll see that we're just trying to keep you current.
And I would just ask maybe Lee or Jim, can you help me understand the FastBridge math, what we're looking at, this document? It's by college pathway, low risk, high risk, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out how best to read it.
I can keep
Yeah, thanks.
So college pathway would be kids that would be considered, it's a different kind of qualifier for advanced.
Okay.
So kids that would be already meeting some criteria for early entry college benchmarks. And then low risk of need for intervention. And then, so when they're giving those other qualifiers, they're talking about potential need for intervention.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at fall, just at the college pathway, fall at 18 and winter, same college pathway at 22, that means we had an increase there? Okay, on the FastBridge.
Correct.
Okay.
Hey, can anybody explain why? Franklin, which was not so long ago, a kind of a problematic situation for us. Of all the elementary schools, it's like really knocking it out of the park. And I mean, I know it happened right away, even before Success for All was implemented, that they were starting to gain on. But is there a reason why that they're kind of running the race way ahead of everybody
Sure.
else?
You guys want to talk about that?
Sure. I think one of the, we have 2 schools that are AGR schools, so gap reduction schools, which gives them, and they're full title schools, which allows them to have some more funding in order to provide positions such as coaches. So Franklin is one of our buildings that has had a math coach for a number of years, and additional reading teachers based on the number of students that are enrolled in that building. So, those coaches help build the capacity of all of our classroom teachers to provide really good, just best practice instructional strategies and help with interventions. And so, when you have people in those positions to be able to support staff and support students, we're able to meet some more individual needs. And, that's just that teaching staff has really embraces the demographics and population of that building, and they're doing a really nice job, working very hard.
I understand they have smaller classes too,
Yeah.
right?
Smaller class
Smaller
sizes.
classes, and
For
I
our,
wonder
like,
if you
kindergarten,
want
first
to
and second.
replicate that in the rest of them.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Right, any questions or anything about that?
I would just give a shout out to all of our staff and students for all their hard work. They're doing a great job and everyone's really proud of them, so keep it up.
Okay, next item is the Manitowoc Lincoln Chips baseball field renovation project. Okay, come on.
Is there any opposition to me standing?
No, not at all.
Okay,
You can even walk around.
that's my plan. Okay, my name's Andy Conkle. I am a longtime resident, lifelong resident of Manitowoc, Wisconsin. I graduated from Lincoln High School in 1999. Live here with my wife and kids. I have a daughter who graduated from Lincoln in 2023. Her name is Olivia. She goes to Eau Claire. Two sons, both at Wilson Junior High School, 6th and 7th graders, Vance and Cash. All of my kids are athletes. So Olivia played softball and volleyball competitively from adolescence through graduation. My boys play basketball, baseball, football, run track, cross country, right? So as a lot of sports families go, we spend a lot of time at events. We spend a lot of time traveling. We spend a lot of time at baseball parks, at football events, basketball arenas, that kind of stuff. And obviously you have your eyes wide open to what's going on while you're taking in those family activities, not only with the kids and maybe the skill of the competition, but also certainly the facilities and playing and all that kind of stuff. So throughout my adult life, I befriended Bruce Steinbecker, who's the head baseball coach at Lincoln. I've known Stan Dietrich since I was probably a 7th or 8th grader. He was my 9th grade basketball coach, so I've known Stan most of my life. And I've just kind of taken a huge ownership in rallying around Lincoln athletics, Lincoln sports. I go to as many football games as humanly possible. I go to basketball games. My kids don't play basketball. I'm at as many basketball games as I can possibly be at. Same thing with football. I go to baseball when they're not scheduled at the same time as softball games.
You're a junkie.
Absolutely. So I just have a huge interest in Lincoln athletics and kind of what we're doing to build up, youth athletics within the community. I work at Manitowoc Cranes. I've been at Manitowoc Cranes for 25 years. So I graduated in 1999. I started at Manitowoc Cranes right after. I continue to work there. Most people don't understand that Manitowoc Cranes still has 90 employees in the community, and we still thrive, and we still have a huge engineering population here and an aftermarket team, and I'm a part of that team. So to transition, kind of that's who I am, and why I'm here is between me, Bruce, and Stan, I have project management background at Manitowoc Cranes. You really need somebody to kind of herd the cattle on a project like this, right? It's a big undertaking. There's a lot of involvement, right? There's community involvement. There's going to need to be business involvement. There needs to be a vision. There needs to be somebody to oversee, like, how does that all get into a funnel? I think we're into that funneling phase right now. So some of this effort started in August, right? Where we're just kind of early on, what does this look like? How do we get together? How do we organize enough that we can get in front of this team, this group here, and make this a meaningful something, okay? So we did that in August. There was a little bit of money spent to understand what costing a project would look like. So we partnered with Rettler, who, if you're unfamiliar, Rettler was the same company that a project team partnered with in 2018 to do the football field renovation. So the same company that did the football field renovation, the architecture, and everything that you see at Ron Rubeck today, that was all handled by the same company that you're going to see quotes tonight. And the same people, same background. They have a very strong understanding of the property, the city, everything that went into Ron Rubeck, obviously. So at the start of the project, I just started putting together, okay, what does this mean? What are we trying to do? What are the things that are a problem, right? So I gave an introduction to the project. I'm not going to read this verbatim, but it really just overlines, we have a baseball community. Our field is in disrepair, and it's the project team's goal to do something about it, right? First step is put a team together. I've done quite a bit of work on this project, to date. I include the team as often as possible. I have regular email communication with them. I'm talking to Bruce and Stan on a weekly basis. Me and Angela have become good friends. I think me and Mike have become good friends. But really just a support team here, people that I'm going to lean on over the next, call it 24 plus months, and work together with to get ideas, help me with certain things, but just really be a task force and a group of people that can rally around the idea of what we're trying to do here. I think pretty much everybody, other than maybe Mike and Angela, have kids in the baseball program. Stan certainly does not. But I think everybody else has kids in the baseball program, maybe from 6th grade all the way up to seniors this year. So you can, we have a huge demographic of kids that are in the program, and we obviously love the program and really want what's best for the kids. Okay. Has everybody been at the baseball facility in the last 12, 24 months? Everybody understands what it looks like today? Okay. So I think when I talk about the problems, it's like the easiest thing to recognize, right? The fence is falling over, the backstop is falling over, the bleachers are just beaten down and kind of derelict. The sound system, I joke all the time, I feel like we have like the best, maybe second best behind Biff announcer and David Ryan announcing Lincoln baseball games, and he sings the national anthem and it's broken and you can't even hear what he's singing, and he does the national anthem and whatnot, and it's really just a problem to me. You look at what we have adjacent to this baseball field, everybody should be extremely proud of the football facility that was built in 2018. I think everybody's extremely proud of what JFK is and the field house. And most of our facilities have been maintained, and we've done a good job of keeping pace with other schools in the area and certainly the ones in our conference. But the baseball field is an exception to that. The baseball field has fallen in disrepair. There's been a lot of reasons for it. We don't even own the field yet. It's still technically owned by the city. So that's a huge problem, something that we need to overcome in the next couple months. It's something that's been in work for over a year now, and even I've tried to push that along and it has not gone well. There's some issues with the DNR and whatnot and the transition of ownership from Manitowoc City to the school district. But again, I don't want that to stop us, right? We're going to play baseball here for the foreseeable future and maybe forever. And in my mind, it's something that needs to be addressed and taken care of. So I think about this project in two scopes. There's player focus and then more community, parent, people that are at the game, watching the game and how they feel about where they're at, and then what the players look at, right? So if you're a player, all you care about is the grass and maybe the fencing around you, and you want to be on a fast surface, a dependable surface, or a deliberate surface, and that's what this first page talks about. So I think about all the maintenance and the upkeep and the getting a field like this ready for play and keeping it in that shape and cutting the grass and having the dirt prepared and all that. That's really what this page talks about. Is there's just a lot of upkeep, and the field, even in its current state, is not in a great state. Stan and probably Mike worked together to redo the infield. It was probably a year ago or 2 years ago. 2 years ago. That's a short-term solution. That's a Band-Aid. The outfield is very inconsistent in grade and just grass quality and whatnot. So overall, the field, it's very difficult to play on. The proposed solution is full turf field, which is what a lot of people are going to. And especially in this climate with, we have really late winters, maybe not this year, but we normally have really late winters. It's hard to get on a playing surface. So right now, the varsity baseball team is literally playing on a football field, right? As just a punt through, get to the first couple of games type of solution. So one focus I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about the cost, is the field and the fencing around it. And then the second is more of a community focus, what maybe the people in this room care more about, which, the fact that we don't have bathrooms, the concession stand is probably not as nice as the shed you have in your backyard. The backstop is falling over. The bleachers, like I said, are kind of falling apart. The pedestrian walkways have not been maintained and are probably a trip hazard. Public address system is horrible. Maybe the lights work, but they're certainly not energy efficient, which is something that we shall be looking for as a future state, improvement. Okay, so these numbers up here, they're big. And I'm aware of that, but they're real, right? So we partnered with a company called Rettler, and these numbers are right off of their quote sheet. So It's a 3.8 million kind of turnkey baseball field project, if you will, and that's what I'm presenting, and that's the go-get. Now, you could certainly do this with a smaller budget, and maybe you could do it with more involvement on our side and less on Rettler's side if we wanted to take ownership of kind of the project management services and architecture services and that kind of stuff. You could certainly squash this budget down quite a bit if you needed to. But what I wanted to show is turnkey, Manitowoc's kind of hands-off, and the art of the possibility, okay? So without getting into deep detail, you know, you look at a full synthetic turf at $1.8 million, that's a much larger number than I would ever thought before I started this project. I thought you could put a synthetic baseball field on a property for maybe $1 million. You think about a concession stand and bathroom facility at $630,000, right? I mean, that's maybe a normal sized house today. That was a joke. But it's a big number, right? It's hard to swallow a number like that. So I'm understanding of that, but at the same time, it's what's in front of us and it's real. So I want to show it. Being able to get to these kind of numbers without a service like Rettler or some other construction management firm, it'd be almost impossible, right? For a project team like ours to try to go out and bid this kind of work and get real numbers and put it all together without some kind of oversight of a true construction management firm, I think it'd be impossible. And I trust these numbers, and I think they're what we got to work off of for right now. Okay, so I have a bunch of pictures and kind of overview renderings. Again, this is the stuff that people get excited about. It's what we're going to show the community of what this project is, and again, the art of the possibility. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything that you see is exactly the way it's going to be finished when we're done, right? It's what this could be. Is there going to be a big motion M in the middle of the outfield? Maybe, maybe not, right? Is the turf going to be striped like that? Maybe, maybe not. But it is certainly an overview of this is the property and this is what it can and could look like with a little bit of work and quite a bit of money to do something that would be extremely meaningful to the baseball program. Okay, so a project like this, in my mind, there's two ways to get there, right? We can go full school district funded program, spend $3.8 million, and we got a new baseball facility. That'd be the easy way, but we're not going to do that, right? Or you get a bunch of driven and passionate people like myself together, and we try to get sponsorship and donors to chip in. The plan I'm showing up here, it's been vetted through the team. I've shown it to enough people to get feedback to say this is doable or not doable. I think this is a doable project, and everything that's above the $50,000 number, so those tiers of 500,000, 250, 250, and 100, if we could fill every one of those positions, it would fulfill $3.5 million. Okay, so thinking that 3.8 is unachievable, I don't think it is unachievable. I think it's very achievable. And I think in 20 or 26 weeks from now, we could certainly have that kind of funding and backing with the right kind of momentum forward, which will be led by me. The big thing here is people have to be understanding that the field is going to be sponsored and there's going to be business names on the field, right? The idea here is you're going to have a facility name, and I put 15-year terms. Certainly that's up for debate. I don't think you put it as a forever, because I use the youth baseball complex as an example. The youth baseball complex is sponsored by Manitowoc Cranes right now, and it will be forever, I think. The people that signed those documents and led that initiative early on, they're no longer at Manitowoc. And the people that lead Manitowoc probably don't care if Manitowoc is on that field anymore. So why wouldn't we take the opportunity to go and renegotiate, no different than Miller Park turning into AmFam or any other I was just at. I won't think of the name, but Staples Center is not called Staples Center anymore. It's called something else. I was just there the other night. And that's what people are doing, right? They sign a sponsorship deal, so it's a 15-year term, or maybe it's a 10-year term, or maybe we decide it's a 20-year term. But the idea here is that you can go back and you can regain money for future fundraising, understanding that things are going to have to be updated, right? The facility is not going to last forever. So when we think about how long something should last, 15 years doesn't seem like that long. But certainly turf and other infrastructure and that kind of stuff does need maintenance and it needs money. So this would give us an opportunity to go back and redo some of those naming rights, pavilion sponsor names that would be on a building, diamond sponsors, inlays that would be in the turf baseball field, and then what I call a home run sponsor or an outfield fence that would be kind of a monochromatic business sponsor opportunity. And it would be kind of, if you've ever been to ballparks, I use the Milwaukee Milkmen as an example. There's business names all over the place. If you walk into any arena around the area, you see the names of insurance companies, major healthcare providers. We have a little bit of it in Manitowoc, but not as much as you see in other places, right? We have certain healthcare, I don't even know who's on. We have the Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry on the football field as an example, right? They sponsored and donated a significant amount of money for that. It's taking that concept and kind of going to the extreme with it. So that's the idea here, and that's how the funding would be provided. Okay, so that's the I want it all, I want it now. That's the Queen version of how we get our money. What if we don't get there, right? Let's just step back and say, okay, we can't get there. We're not going to raise 3.8 million. We get halfway into this thing and we're sitting at 1.5 and we're trying to figure out how we get to a point where it's still a meaningful project and something that we can put together. What I'm proposing and what the team is proposing is taking a player focus on the corporate fundraising and letting the school district and the school board focus more on the community side of things, the infrastructure piece, right? So the things that the project team feels should be provided by the school district in a building, bathrooms, concession stands, bleachers, paved walkways that you don't trip over, right? Those are all things that I think everybody in the room would say, yeah, it makes sense. The school board, the school district should be responsible for those things. And then there's other things that are more of a, let's call it nice to have and more of a player focus where every kid in America isn't playing on a turf baseball field today, but there's certainly enough of them that it's a nice to have when you get to do it, right? So those are the things that the project team feels is the focus initially. And when we get to that threshold, it doesn't mean you stop, right? Let's imagine we raise $2.2 million in the next 18 weeks. Certainly the effort doesn't stop, right? The threshold is 3.8 million. And if we get to the full funding, then we met the goal. My point here is there's got to be some balance point in between where we don't get to full funding and we still have a viable project. And I need people to understand what that means and how we're going to manage that and how we're going to talk to businesses about it. Because let's imagine we raise $1 million and we don't get any more. We got to have a scheme of how we're going to give that money back or not do anything with it, right? We can't have $1 million in the bank and no place to put names or a renovated field and have to give that money back. Likewise, if we get somewhere between let's call it 2 million and 3.7 million, there's certainly some concessions that can be made, right? There's things you could do to pare back certain things. You could use different bleachers or different contractors, and there's all kinds of things that we can do, right? So I just want to make sure people understand that it's already out in the community probably today that there's a $3.8 million project to fundraise for the baseball program. And that's certainly true. And that's what the go-get is. But there has to be some understanding that if we don't get there, there still could be a viable project here. And I think we can be creative with how the money is spent to still get what the needs of the community are. At the same time, the project team would really like everybody on the school board to understand that we want there to be a player focus first and the community focus as more of a school board budgetary item, if you will. So, okay, I have a schedule up here. the goal here would be to be playing baseball on this field in 2026. So you can imagine that we're getting ready to have a baseball season right now. It's 2024. That group's going to turn around and do the same thing in 2025. And then the goal would be by 2026 to be playing baseball. I think that is achievable. Certainly this can shift, right? When I wrote this in August, I had that same finish date, but there's certainly things that have changed between August of 2023 and today that I'm learning as I go here. But at the same time, I don't think it's not overly aggressive either. I think there's enough time in between. I think a fundraising campaign of this scale is really going to be corporate focused and big business focused. That it's not like we're going to be going out and asking for $50 and $100 from people in the community. We're going to be asking for businesses for money and understanding if that gets us where we need to be. And then once the money is raised, obviously there's going to be a process on the back end where the school has to then deploy that money and use it for good and make the dream a reality, if you will. Okay, so the goal of tonight for me was this, twofold. One is I want to begin fundraising. And in order to begin fundraising, I want your approval to do it, right? So there was a moment in time where somebody came here, and it wasn't me, but somebody came here and said, hey, can we do this? Can we spend the money on Rattler? Can we do the pre-construction investigation? And somebody said yes, and we did that. And I think that's a good thing, and we know more today than we did 8 months ago. If we're going to make this real and meaningful, we need to start fundraising. So I'm asking for that approval. And part of that is there is going to be business marketing throughout the facility, and people have to be accepting and understanding of that. So that's one ask. And then the second one is the cost sharing strategy. So again, if the target's not met, what does that mean? Can we start budgeting some amount to understand how we could get some money put away, that if we get to that $2 million threshold, that there would be some other infrastructure piece that could be pulled in by the school district. And the reason that's interesting right now is that when we go to businesses, they're going to ask what we're going to chip in. They're not just going to say, oh yeah, Andy, here's $500,000 and we don't expect you guys to do anything, right? They're going to ask the school board and the school district to say, yeah, they're in for some amount. Now, I don't necessarily need a number, but I need a look in the eye for people to say, we're in on this, we're going to do something here, and it's some percentage of that, or it's something meaningful that I can, again, look at a CEO, a CFO, a CEO, or a group of people that are on a board of approvals for a charitable contribution committee to say to me, yes, we'll give you money, and we know that the school board of Manitowoc is also backing you. So those are kind of the two asks for tonight. That is all I have.
Yes, that's a lot.
That's a lot. Go ahead, Carrie.
Can we discuss this after we talk to the CISA people about the load we're going to be paying them? I mean, we have to kind of integrate those things together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a good possibility. This is, as far as the fundraising goes, I mean, as well as it could go, would be, not much of a commitment to us. I think he's just looking for approval to start fundraising.
We've been down there.
So to give you an idea, and I didn't want to start listing business names, but I certainly have them. I have a list of over 40 corporations, and I have contacted 25 of them right now. So our ability to get in the boardroom and ask people for money is extremely strong. So I'm ready to do that. I'll literally be in a boardroom next Friday if this goes.
Manitowoc itself is a very strong business. Got a lot of really good family and local oriented businesses around here. I think people would jump at the chance, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Andy, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
You had mentioned earlier that you guys are working through some issues with the transfer of property to the city. What's the risk of that going sideways?
Well, it's a good question, one I can't answer. We need to partner closer with Manitowoc and maybe with the mayor's office and understand what needs to happen to try to push this. I have contact through Brock Wettenkamp and through email strings of a DNR person, and they go cold, they respond to me, they go cold. It's not being handled appropriate right now. And something more needs to be done. I think the risk is low. I'm not involved in the scheme to have ownership over the field. I don't know who made that agreement. It sounds like a sound agreement. It sounds like it's going to be transfer of ownership for $1 or something like that. Right. So at the end of the day,
Do you have any specifics on where the DNR is and why they're there?
Angela?
Yeah, some of it is, just with the kind of the DNR moves of what we've been told, and I've talked to Brock as well, and Andy's definitely helped try to get people going on it. He's done a tremendous job with this. And I heard that too, there was some changeover of staffing, and just even on the greatest of situations, sometimes it can take a long time to get through the sort of hoop jumping to get this transferred. The transfer, like the piece that's holding up is basically that there was funding at one point to maintain the property at a certain, to maintain it with certain, I'm trying to think here. Do you remember what it is offhand? Like, we just have to we've accepted the responsibility of maintaining what we need to do with the property, but the DNR has to literally just transfer it to us. So it's not like a question of if they're gonna do it, it just has to follow through the stages. I'm sorry, I'm the exact pieces. It was just part of maintaining certain things with the property. So not something that's unreasonable or that we wouldn't have the ability to do as a district.
right.
I think we have to keep a sign up, I think is literally what it is, like keeping a sign up that says that the land was part of the DNR agreement or something, and we'd have to put a new sign up, if the sign was down, and just agree to follow that moving forward. Do you remember a little bit of that, Matt?
Yeah,
Feel free to.
so it's pretty minor, is what it sounds like. I'm just trying to understand, like, is there a risk that we commit to spending millions of dollars and then like, oh, by the way, like, you don't own it?
And really, I do want to add,
We don't want to do
we had a point in time, I hear this very often when we talked about the Rubik Field project, with the football field, is we ran into a level of safety concern at a certain point where we had schools that wouldn't come and play on our fields. And
I remember.
and so the same, we're not there with the baseball field yet, but I would say
You're getting
we're
close, I would
encouraging on
argue.
it. So, and we
Right.
need a place for these students to play and have a solid facility like we have for the football program. And so this would be just something we need to do for not only safety, just for the program in general. It's just something that would be very important to do for the baseball program.
The other thing to remember is the kids of Manitowoc and the youth baseball movement in Manitowoc, if you think about what was put in place with the complex that we have, right? It's city-owned. It was funded by a team similar to this, but it is a huge shining star with tournaments and activity and the youth baseball leagues that go on there during summer nights and that type of stuff. And anybody that comes to a tournament in Manitowoc, they walk away with a huge, like, kudos to who we are and what we do. So then you think about those kids that are playing in that facility, when they make the transition from 12 years old to 13-year-old, which my son is doing right now, they literally get to play at a lesser facility, which it's really not fair to those kids, right? I mean, yes, it's great that they have a really cool youth baseball experience, but that kind of dies once they get into junior high and high school in Manitowoc, unfortunately. So what does that do? It starts leading people to look elsewhere, right? So you start playing baseball outside of Manitowoc and that type of stuff. You look at the program that Bruce Steinbecker and Mr. Hadler have put together. They've been coaching here for 23 years. Before them, Gene Mann coached from 1981 to 2004. We've had 2 baseball coaches in 40 plus years. That's unheard of, right? In that time, we've had a winning record. There's over 190 kids in our baseball program right now. There's more kids in baseball than football, basketball, any other sport. So if you think about why the money should be spent here or what the need is, the kids are back in the program. The families are back in the program. we have a huge base of knowledge when you look at the coaching staff that Bruce has put together. It's something that we should be very proud of. The facility does not mimic what the program is, and that's a huge problem.
I have no issue at all with sponsorships on the field or just Rubik has them, JFK has them on the floor. That's just part of society now, that's part of it. You expect it. So, I have no problem with that. If you look at Rubik, the district spent money to make that project better because you needed new bleachers across from the press box, and the district did that. That wasn't raised by the private citizens that raised money. And, so I think there should be a commitment from the district to make that place respectable, because right now it's becoming the place where people don't want to play, right? Want to come here and play.
Right.
It's probably the worst field.
It's absolutely the worst field in the conference.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
We're the best team in the conference.
We were last year, we won it.
Yeah.
I think Bruce and his staff have done an outstanding job. I mean, this baseball program is really bright light in our district, and personally, I feel that we should do whatever we can to support it. I guess my only question is, what's the downside of authorizing them to do this? I mean, other than, I guess, we're committing to like potentially some spend, right? Is that the elephant in the room?
My other thought was that, have you talked to the city at all about, you have a sports complex there with the baseball field and the football field. And when I look at some of these costs, I know, I don't think they put them in, but there's no sewers that go over to the baseball field. And that's why they still have porta potties.
Yeah. That is part of Rattler's proposal. They know that, they understand what it's going to take. That's probably part of the big number there, right?
Yeah.
There's another proposal that Rattler put together that even takes us to like the next level, where you'd put a softball field adjacent to the baseball field, you'd shut the street down, and you'd really make it, that's a $5.5 million proposal, okay? So there are certainly levels that you could take this to an extreme spot. But this $3.8 million proposal, it gets you the sewer system, right? It gets you everything that any person here would want. And there's opportunity, like you said, Matt, there's going to be people that are going to step up and want to do in-kind work, right? There's going to be businesses, and there's going to be construction companies, and there's going to be other things that are going to happen here in the next 8 to 12 months, that this thing is going to change and morph and become something that's not what I'm explaining to you right now. But I think we don't know what that is until we get our feet off the ground, until we start doing something. And talk is cheap, and in order to do something here, we need to go out and we need to start working on this actively and partnering with businesses. And in my mind, the time is now. There are other massive infrastructure plans in the community. Everybody probably saw that Chiefs is doing something similar and trying to do something similar with their football field. And Michigan is doing something similar with their baseball facility right now too. So I've said that the time was right to do this because there hasn't been a big fundraising effort in Manitowoc in a long time. You have the aquatic center that has been kind of days gone by, huge funding. The football field, days gone by, massive funding. The baseball field, the youth baseball field, those are all 5+ year old projects. Okay, now everybody seems to be organizing like we are right now. And I think the time is now in that regard. And the sooner that we can get out and start talking to people, if we wait 6 months or we wait 3 months, I think we're going to miss a huge opportunity.
When we made the decision to take this over, we committed to redoing it. I know we looked at prices of redoing and shaping up different parts of that field and the parking lot and whatever. We kind of understood that there was going to be some commitment here. Right now, I mean, we've already committed, and this isn't going to affect the scoreboard that we put up there, right?
Absolutely not.
So, we've already committed to that, and we gave Stan permission to go look for that, which it costed us nothing because Stan had people jumping at the chance to put that up and put their names on there. I know several companies that did that. So either way, right now, as far as the downside on this, there's a good possibility he could go out there and people are going to just slam this and take it and knock it out of the park, so to speak.
They might.
And, right, and.
They might.
It won't cost us.
And at the same time, they might not. And if they don't, we're gonna know,
Right.
we're gonna know in 20 weeks from now if this thing's gonna work or not.
And in 20 weeks, honestly, I think with everything that, we're a district that is zero debt right now. I don't think, I understand that we've been, we spend on certain things, and I'm not trying to say that this is the most important thing, but I just don't see the downside of giving him the permission to go with the fundraising and then committing to whatever we get to, if he was to be shy of that, to committing to the rest. But
Okay, Jim?
I would, I'm just really impressed with, being an athlete myself in terms of having facilities like that, what that
Yes.
gives you. I don't know that you have the context here to make a decision at this point in time. I think one is you need to listen to the state of all of our facilities, because you hear similar concerns. Angela, how much money have we raised on the track?
That I don't have an updated figure right now, and I think that project, because we ended up having to meet it because of safety concerns, the district took it on, because there's both an instructional focus with that, and it was so aged and bleachers were ripping it up, we had to move forward on that.
So we don't have a figure there. My sense is, we didn't raise very much there. I just think you need to understand your total facilities, what types of costs you might have, if the potential down the road here, and I've identified it, I think you're gonna need a referendum. It's not when, it's not if, it's just when. That takes a lot of engagement. I think you just have to have more context here.
we have different people going with the fundraising on this. This is something he's going to champion himself.
Well, no, I'm not, I think that's admirable. I think that's really good. It's what happens, what happens if it's half? In
sounds like
terms
there's
of you're
no way.
making,
There is
making a
none.
decision with,
This is no.
Well, one of the things that I want to say is that I think that, again, I'd like to see in the budget that we have set aside $1.6 million for this, and when that's going to come out and how it's going to be taken out. And I don't think that we've seen the long-range plan of that. So for us to say that, yes, we'll kick in 1.6 or less if it comes to that, I don't think we're at a point that we can say that right now. And I think that he needs that to be able to go out and say to the donors, hey, Manitowoc's going to kick in 1.6. We want to get to 2.2. So, I think that, again, all for the fundraising. I don't think, though, at this point, without seeing how it's going to impact our overall budget, first, before I would say, yes, we're going to definitely partner.
Can we say that we give him permission to do the fundraising and that the district, we didn't vote on that or give him any?
Year ago, gave him approval.
No, that was for something else. He's looking for us to give him, the go-ahead on fundraising for this right now, yes? So,
I am.
right, so can we say that? And then say that we will go in a little, but we just not give him a number?
Well, and that's where I'm at. So to be fair, when I think about a $1.6 million project that's off-field, right?
Right.
You could do something meaningful there for 500,000 probably, right? We could do walkways and bleachers and maybe a bathroom, but not there's things that could be conceded to make it still a meaningful concourse, bleachers, still do the field, still do all the naming. Okay, maybe we don't have the naming rights on a press box type of statue, but there's other things that could be done. So I'm not standing here asking you to kick in $1.6 million. If we could get to a number of 500,000, and we said that if the project team was responsible for 2 million and the school district was going to sign up for 500,000 and we got to 2.5 million, we can do something extremely meaningful with that kind of money.
And we knew when we took on that property and that was approved by the board that there were several things like the parking lot, the walkways that were just something that the district was gonna have to take care of either way from if you look in that parking lot, it's like an insurance nightmare. I just kind of close my eyes and hope for the best. There was also not lights, I don't believe, in that parking lot. So when we have, you know, in that, so even for football events and baseball events, it's, you know, there are things that we knew we were going to have to invest in. I can't remember the exact price tag. And the-
400,000 for the parking lot.
Huh?
I think it was 400,000 just for the parking lot.
Yeah.
Correct. And what Andy said too is we can, you know, it's to say like, have I put everything in outlined in a budget? There are so many moving parts now with the upcoming capital work that will have to be considered. But we have many tools financially, and I know that we can piece this in, even if it's staggered in small parts and phased in along with other needs that we have in the district, that we will have the ability to do that. You know, is it like on a piece of paper written down exactly when we're gonna do what? No. But I feel confident that we can prioritize and we can work out a plan to support what they're not able to fundraise, you know, for the, like, sort of, you know, the, like you said, the goal could be that they fundraise over what they need and they could be able to limit what the district needs to contribute.
It's entirely possible that we can get to the full amount.
Sure.
I do believe that.
I mean, I would be happy to, once you have a preliminary schedule of what that would look like and how much it would cost, you know, by, you know, the next meeting, you know, I'd be happy to
What
do
would
that,
cost?
but I want to see how much we're going to spend, when we're going to spend it, along with all our other capital projects,
On what?
before I would commit to have a dollar amount for that parcel.
There may not be a dollar.
We can't come up with
Well, we don't know
500K
that. I
over like
mean,
the
I
next couple
understand.
years.
We don't know the
But
official.
there's a good possibility
Yeah.
it may
Yeah,
be
yeah.
zero.
That's true.
It-
It might be.
It could be that you approve the project and then if they can't fundraise up to their amount, or, you know, you could frame it in a way that they can move forward to fundraise, and, you know, I'm happy to do whatever, you know,
Yeah.
but you could make the motion so that they're able to go out and start their work, because I think that's what's really hard for them to know too,
Right.
if they're able to fundraise.
Well, and the other thing with fundraising is you're at the start of a fiscal year, right? You're at the beginning of a year and people are looking for opportunities in their charitable contribution activity to do this type of stuff. The longer you wait in a year, and again, I don't want to act like it's doomsday, right? Every year changes. You go to 25, you have the same moment in time. But this is the best time of the year to do this type of activity, right? It's end of Q1, going into Q2. Most people don't have things commissioned yet to these types of big time contributions or donor pools. So that part of it is really compelling. We're at a good moment in time to start this if we want to do it.
Okay.
And like I said,
I'd like to be comprehensive about all this stuff, you know, this is sort of, not to a bad metaphor, but out of left field for me right now, and I don't know about the rest of you, but, you know, we have a lot on our plate right now with, you know, with buildings and grounds and, you know, and success for all, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm enthusiastic about the project, your project. I think it'd be a great thing for the Manitowoc Public Schools and for the city. We have to see this in context, though, and I think after we talk to the CISA people, we'll have a better sense of context. I think. I don't think I would abstain on a vote right now.
Sure.
But I don't think. And the other thing that worries me is that we don't have much time to spread this out over. I mean, you guys have got a very fast schedule on this ballpark. So I don't know. I think we may want to negotiate something in terms of time or something in terms of other things. But I don't think we can do that. You know, I'm not saying, boy, I'd never vote yes on this. I would vote yes on this.
So does anybody
If-
have a motion that they would like to?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the fundraising campaign. If we can't give them a number, if that we're not gonna put in until after we hear CISA and everything else, we wanna do that, we can always redo that. But right now, he's looking for approval to do the fundraising. We did invest in this, we did do an approval, and we got that information now. They went and hired all these people and did this, and we got a plan.
Okay, is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Biff.
Discussion?
The reason I'm seconding it is if they don't raise the money, we're gonna spend a lot more money.
Yeah, that's true.
If they don't raise what he's been talking about, we're gonna need to spend money just to make that
to make
place
it-
playable for kids.
If we wait at this point in time in the year, we got another meeting next month, maybe month after that, everybody else is gonna be invested for the year, and you're not gonna get diddly. He's right about this is the right time of the year. Holding him off from doing the fundraising campaign is gonna greatly increase the amount we're gonna have to put in later. That's the only reason why I say, because what if he does and he puts it all in and we get 35 grand the whole time? Well, then we get it back. So right now he needs approval to do that.
So how much are we on the hook if we vote?
We're not.
I'd like to know.
It's a good question.
Superintendent?
I have no idea.
We're not.
Okay.
And he's
I don't
going for a
either.
fundraising campaign. If you were to go and we get diddly,
If we get
can it be
I'll
returned?
give you an example. So we had a huge fundraising project for Jefferson's playground.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay, and when you raise that kind of money and it doesn't meet the whatever it is, then it's like, okay, the school now feels awful that we raised all this money and now we have to finish this project, whether we have the money or not, whether it's the best investment for the district as a whole.
Okay.
So all I'm saying, I will vote no on this, not because I don't want the fundraising to start, but I would like to see in our budget where this is going to come from. And let's maximize the amount of money, not 500 out of a whim or $1 million out of a whim, but how much can we actually set aside and donate to this wonderful project that they can go out and do. But I think, again, without seeing our picture and the millions of dollars that we need for all our buildings. So again, it's not a matter of that we don't want to do it. It's a matter of, I want to be able to make a firm commitment that, hey, we're chipping in $1 million for this. Not to mention that if the facilities are all ours, meaning the bathrooms and all the state-of-the-art stuff that we're going to have, there's going to be a maintenance cost of that every year, which needs to be built into the budget, needs to be considered. So that's all I'm saying is, they can go fundraise, but at the end of the day, we have not committed yet to because we haven't even seen the context of what it's going to be.
That's the motion that's on the floor right now, because I said, I motion that we approve him to go fundraise.
Yeah.
And we can't commit to
We
it.
know that.
The fundraising here is drastically different than anything else I've seen out of this community. We're talking big business, corporate fundraising. We're not talking going to every baseball family and asking them to sell pizzas and all the stuff that people do. That's not the goal here, right? If we get to that point and we need to go for that extra 100,000 or whatever it is, right? And we're going door to door with pizzas. I hope we never get there, but let's imagine we did. That is 8 to 10 to 12 months down the road. What I want to do is I want to have the approval to go talk to the 40 or 50 big businesses, right? I'm not talking about the small businesses that are in downtown Manitowoc. I'm talking about the business park district businesses, right? I'm talking about the Acuities of the world, right? I'm talking about big businesses. And if that money cannot be used, Matt's right. It has to be given back to them. If this project fails, but the difference here is, okay, there's already a public understanding of the project because we're talking about it in this light. But this isn't the type of campaign that we're going to be sitting here every single week throwing out Facebook messages and asking people for money. This is a different strategy. The strategy is go after the big fish, and if that works, then the little ones can start to contribute as much as they'd like, right? I think that's different. When you start asking people for individual money, right? If you ask me for money and then you don't see that project through, it's a different feeling than you ask a corporation for money, the project isn't seen through. Nobody's going to be, kind of left out in the cold in the community. Are there going to be images? Are these images that are on the screen tonight going to be out in the community? Probably. Are people going to get excited about that? 1,000%. They probably already are, right? I don't know how much that changes if we don't do this because this idea is already out there, right? But I just want that to be understood that this is not the grassroots kind of mom and pop go out and fundraise thought. This is a different scheme.
I personally think we're already on the hook because we made the commitment to take the property over. Right now, we're sitting in a dangerous spot.
Tony?
Could we amend the motion to maybe just put an amount TBD pending review? I mean, we could, I'm sure, come up with something for this. We have the best baseball team in conference, and the fact that they're playing on what they're playing on is,
Oh, I bet
I mean,
there's consensus on that.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, like, we have to prioritize getting this done. And like, I can't envision a path forward with whatever we're gonna spend on the other stuff that this doesn't get completed.
So could we have Angela bring that to our next meeting?
Yeah,
and
right.
see
I think we need time to
X's
think.
and O's about it?
Can we give him?
Well, I just don't wanna hamper, to his point, like, and Andy, maybe you can clarify, like, if you don't get that, the board's gonna back it out of this meeting, is that gonna put you behind in fundraising?
100%. I'm not going in somewhere.
Yeah, right.
I'm going in as you, right? I have your interest. I have Manitowoc School District's interest when I walk into a room. And I need to know that what I say is fact.
I know that you
by
had
the
said you
board.
had something scheduled already, just preemptively, and that's why I'm saying I didn't want to pass this opportunity, but.
So why couldn't we amend the motion for an amount, TBD, pending prioritization with everything else? That way he can go in there and say the district's gonna back it. We just gotta figure out, we gotta prioritize with a bunch of other things we're doing. And there's no set dollar amount, but at least, I don't know if that would be helpful or not, but I'm just trying to find a
And
middle
I'm not
ground.
saying I need a set dollar amount. I think the fact that it's socialized and you guys recognize it, that's huge.
I mean, if the deadline's April and there's 30 days or whatever amount of days in April, why can't we do this at our April meeting?
Yeah, right. Why can't we do it as a
What's your first, you said?
I'll be somewhere next Friday if I'm allowed to.
I say we do it. I mean, worst case, we could make it $1. I mean, I'm not saying we're gonna make it $1, but like, I mean, you're not really committing to anything other than giving him the best shot to fundraise.
I
And
would
if
like,
that's what he's asking for, I say we give it to him.
we can, if you want to, I'll accept that friendly amendment, but I even said, at the very least, if we're so gun shy, we're afraid about what we're gonna do until we hear everything else, let's at least give them the approval for the fundraising and say, yes, we back you, go get as much as you can, and we'll have to see what we can do.
Yep. I think, I realize we live in a capitalist.
Please, I've been
economy.
waiting for
Oh,
you
I'm
to say
sorry.
something, you're a
I'm ready to
baseball
talk
guy,
now.
you're
So,
alumni.
I would be voting yes because I would like to see some positives out of this, but I would like to have a contingency that we could report in 6-8 weeks so that we can make that decision about a dollar amount.
Yes.
Because I don't want to, great job, thank you, but 1.6 million, there's a long list of needs in the district. And if I say, yeah, 1.6, well, it's going to be the first people that ask first that get what they want, and the rest is going to fall over. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm all for you doing your job about the fundraising campaign, and I'm inspired that you're doing the work. However, the people right behind you are going to tell us how many millions of dollars the rest of the district needs. So I'm saying, why don't we do this, but we need an update in a couple weeks. I don't really, and maybe then we can give a dollar amount, not to mention there's an election, obviously, in a couple weeks here. So the board is going to be changing as well, maybe not. But anyways, so I would say yes to giving the campaign funding to start this. However, I would like a report in a few weeks.
That's a good thing.
Okay, so we want to take a vote?
So,
Is there an amendment?
So the motion is
what do you say?
that we approve, I'm gonna add his amendment right now, and his friendly amendment. I motion that we approve his fundraising campaign, okay? We're not gonna commit to a dollar right now. We will pitch in, but we just can't give him a number until we hear a little bit more. And we would also like for you to come back in 6 weeks to let us know more about what you think.
I think that's feasible to give him a start and for saying that the district is committed on a vote.
Okay.
However, we'd like to see what fundraising and if there's any fruits from that as well.
All right, so that's the motion. Can you hold on to your second with that, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Okay. Any
That
further?
puts-
Go.
That puts, it doesn't give you an amount,
That's okay.
but I think there's a commitment that if you raise X number of dollars, and I kind of think of it as the football project, you raise X number of dollars, this board is gonna have to step in and try to help finish or make it playable or make it something that and we don't know what that amount is gonna be, because if you're very successful, it may be nothing. If it's $500,000,
Right. Correct.
you know. it's
you can use that for
we
everything
take it
you're
out
talking
of,
to.
But we're not doing a blank check here.
no, but what I'm saying is there's a feeling, at least of us being supportive of the project, and we're gonna be involved somehow with it.
Okay. You've been around all this stuff your whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a long life, but it's your whole life.
Not
I mean, what do you, I don't know if you're a gambler or not, but this, what are the odds, do you think, Biff?
This,
Yeah.
with him doing the fundraising, I think it's probably pretty good. My other thing is that sometimes as a community, we gotta take a chance, and we did that with JFK, and it's,
Sure.
you know, we did something a little nice.
Okay.
Did it with Rubeck, so I understand the money part of this, but I think we have to at least get behind the project and.
Yes. We're playing with the people's money, though.
Yep, I
It's not
understand.
our own money. I mean,
Andy,
we're not independent capital.
I just want you to know that I completely support this project, but I still want to just wait for those details because I want you to have an exact number to go to that. And I'm
That's fair.
hoping we can do that as fast as possible. But
That's what I want to.
let's bring this to a vote. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
No.
Okay.
42. Okay, thanks, Andy.
Okay, thank you all. I appreciate you.
You bet. Good luck with your efforts.
I thought you were gonna vote against it.
Okay, next up is, our facilities assessment.
I just need.
Mike, why don't you have him come on up?
I thought that it's a little bit high pressure sales.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm never too sure about that. When that's
You were
happening.
100% right.
Oh,
You did a very good job.
Yeah. It was, he'll probably raise a lot of money.
Well, CISA's here, as Chris said, this could be our smelling salts tonight. I haven't forgotten that one. But I'll let these guys get started with their report with what they have, so.
Pretty good. Is there any way we can get paper copies of that?
Paper copy?
Yeah, I mean, I like looking on the tube.
I've got one, I'll get it for you.
I took the figures.
They should ask. Are there more paper copies?
No, then, I should ask you for a donation.
I get that
Yeah,
back.
if you got an extra one.
Is that yours?
No, pony.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, you got the floor.
Yeah.
All right, let's get started. All right, well, we're back. It's been less than a month since we were in front of you. We've got some really good updates today. Again, just as a reminder, I'm John Berger, the project manager. I've been working with the assessment since October. Again, we continue to make good headway, and as we had mentioned before, we've gotten a lot of good support from the district and the district staff. Nate Carell has also been involved since October. He's been doing some really in-depth analysis of what we found for improvement measures. And then I've also got Luke Schultz, who we both report to at CISA 10. He's the Associate Director of our Facilities Management Department. All right, our objectives for this assessment, again, it's a bit of a review. We wanted to define and prioritize some of the facilities needs. We wanted to develop plans, doing cycle planning from 1 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, and 5 to 10 years, looking at the maintenance, repair, and energy management. We've done a pretty solid review in school safety, environmental health and safety and ADA compliance as well. We've got a fairly long list of facility improvement measures. The acronym that we use is FIMS for those main items. And we're suggesting as one of the outcomes from this assessment that the district takes on the task of doing a true facilities master plan and make that master plan an ongoing process from today, continuing on, into infinity. So we really think now's the time to do it, and we've got a good solid set of data to work from. What we've done with various improvement measures is we've taken them and put them in our standard prioritization. That prioritization, and again, I briefly hit on it last month, we're looking at health, safety, compliance. We're also looking at the functional conditions, return on investment, and then lastly, the project cost. So when we rank these measures and we start looking at putting them into that 1 to 2, 2 to 5, or 5 to 10 year plan, that prioritization is used to start doing that sorting. The matrix that you'll see in the final report is laid out as the example on the slide. We've identified a building, we've identified a description of the improvement measure, we identify a recommendation that we're making, and then our prioritization and scoring. And on the far right-hand side of that table is the estimate cost for that measure. Let's go to the energy. Energy, we also did an energy analysis. We've got a few areas where we're above average in electric use and a few areas in natural gas use. We really did not find a big gap or a big need in energy management, but we did find a number of opportunities within the buildings to save energy. And I know we briefly talked about it last meeting. LED lighting is an example where I think we could make some real good operational gains, plus give us some additional energy. So with that, I'd like to start diving into the elementary schools. You've got a lot of buildings, a lot of spaces. Just to forewarn you, our draft report at this point is 265 pages long. So when you're thinking about long lists of items to do, we've got those lists. We've got them backed up with pictures, and we also have additional notes and pictures that'll be behind each of those. One of the things, I'm going to stand this slide for a minute. One of the things that we talked about at our last meeting was moving into that owner's representative contract, supporting some of the management of projects that are in front of you for this summer. One of the things that I really wanted to mention is we've taken some progress steps forward. This is a list of measures for the Jefferson Elementary. Taking another look and putting some additional rankings on prioritizing the measures, we've been able to identify a list of projects that are recommended for this summer. So it would be in that 1 to 2 bracket or area. Doing that ranking, we looked at a few additional items to be able to take that on. Complexity of the project is one of those items. Again, we've got a very short window to expedite and start moving these projects. A lot of times and a lot of the measures that we're looking at on these matrix, we're really looking at a 6 month to maybe even an 8 or 9 month lead. It's going to be really important for us to build that list near the end of this summer so that we can get the bidding and all of the procurement lined up for 2025 summer. And I think we'll be able to take on some more complex projects in that next summer. Material and contractor availability is another ranking that we applied to the measures when we selected Jefferson as kind of our target school for this next summer. And then budget allowance, Angela was able to get us a number which we've been working within. And then lastly, safety. Any critical safety items we do recommend we take care of as soon as possible. So when we finish our presentation, I guess at that time would be best for questions. I've got a lot I want to get through, and then if we could just take all the questions at the end, I think that'll probably be best for us. Go to the pictures, I guess. Here's some pictures from Jefferson, just as an example of some of the items that we're trying to pick off that project list. For those that are familiar with the inside of Jefferson, there's a rotunda in the center of the main corridors. One of the safety issues with that rotunda, which is up in the upper left-hand side of the picture set, is you've got guardrails, you've got the building full of elementary students, and the guardrails are just like little ladders. There's probably a piece of playground equipment that's very similar to what you're seeing in this picture. And there's a, 12-foot drop on the other side of that. So the rotunda itself is beautiful, and it's really a neat feature of the building, but I do think we need to consider enclosing that in a different way, maintain the rotunda, for the appearance in the building and the uniqueness of it, but then lastly, take care of it. So there's a safety item that we really are hard on looking at. The kiln, there's some work to be done with the kiln. And at this point, I should say that we've taken this list and we've worked with Mike. Mike has selected a lot of those facility improvement measures that he's going to work on with some of his local contractors and more importantly, some of his staff. And then we've got a portion of that list that we're going to work on for some of the other items per Mike's assignment. So there was some coordination concerns and questions at our last meeting, and we've worked that out with Mike, and we're prepared to explain that in more detail if need be. One of the next steps in pushing this through, we really would like to meet with the principal. We'd like to meet with the custodial staff in that building to fully understand what the final scope would be for making each of those individual improvements at that building. That same process is what we would like to continue as we go into the different elementaries and going into the middle school and going into the high school, so that we've got a good base of communication and we're knocking out in very similar fashion bulk type process and completions versus just a fix here and a fix there and never really having a solid facility in place after we're done with our projects. Okay, next one. For each of the elementaries, and again, this sequence of slides is going to come up for each elementary school. So we show a matrix or a table of what those individual improvements are for that school that we're recommending. Then we've got a budget estimate of the estimates for the 1 to 2 year cost for each building, a 2 to 5 year cost, and then also a 5 to 10 year cost. The total project cost at Jefferson in our estimates is $5,790,200 as an example. I do need to mention that in the Jefferson slide and most of the elementary schools, we've also got an estimate in there for an addition. That addition would be a cafeteria multi-purpose area. It's where there's space confinement in those buildings, and we do find that there's a square footage need in most of your elementaries. Stangl, we would be looking at possible other additions in that building so that FIM is not in Stangl, and it's also not in Riverview, which currently has a cafeteria, for an example. I wanted to bring that out because it's about a $4 million ad. Jefferson, as an example, has less repair needs in comparison to many of the other schools, but that $4 million measure tends to swing it and make it look like it's quite a bit more. I just have a note here. Jefferson, Monroe, and Franklin are really the 3 elementaries that show the least amount of need from us, but they do have that added space, major construction type project attached to them. So we'll go into another school. Riverview Elementary, again, the same table. We've got the 1 to 2 year needs. This is the set of items that we would like to, again, continue with Mike and going through and identifying which of these we think we could fit into what the dollar allocations might be for next summer. If we would be under budget with what we're processing for this summer, we would continue to pick more and more of these improvements from this list or the other lists for the elementaries to do additional completions this year. We do plan and hope to be able to spend all of the dollars that are available to make those improvements as soon as possible. We go to the next one. Again, a set of pictures. There are needs out there, and I don't want to scare people or it's not too bad, but as you're going through the report and even looking at just these pictures, the things that we're identifying are real. We have had the opportunity of touring with some of your staff. Mike has taken time out to tour a lot. And we've got all the information that we need to back up why we think a recommendation is necessary and why that work should be done. Again, looking at this school, we've got a little bit higher costs identified with this one. Again, there's some pretty major recommendations that could be done in the 2 to 5 year category. So it's 14 million. Monroe Elementary, again, another school that's in pretty decent shape. Another list of those same needs. I don't think I need to go through those in detail. Again, a set of projects and pictures of conditions. All of these condition pictures are rather immediate needs that need to be either fixed soon or need to be rolled into a plan. It's just going to get worse. Again, taking the roll up there, we're at 7.8 million for the Monroe School. Madison, quite frankly, this school is the one that we've identified as in the worst condition. So we've found a lot of need, and we also found that operationally it looked like there would probably be dollars saved as well. So let's look at that. $9 million. And it's a very small building. Franklin, again, that same set of needs and lists. Just for being so redundant, you've got a big district. We've got a lot of repeat needs. So we'll just get through this as we can. Looking at that school, we're just under 5 million. Jackson, kind of the sister to Franklin, laid out very similar. Again, the set of pictures that will go with those measures, and then our summary is at 10 million. And you do see some differences in these different buildings. The full report will give you all of that detail. As I'd mentioned, there's over 250 pages. Stankel, a pretty solid building, but there's a lot of interior need that would have to happen to maybe make the operational changes we would recommend. 3.6 million, so again, not too bad. Let me just make a couple comments before we get into the middle school. Due to the existing conditions and then also the declining enrollment that we've seen, we do feel that it's a time for the district to make some pretty big decisions as to what they may want to do in consolidation or new construction. New construction being additions or even maybe to consider a new school as well. They're going to be tough decisions to make. One of the things that I want to remind you now, and I'll continue to do that as we're working with the district, the report that we're going to hand you is going to be very important and a very useful tool to be able to make those decisions. The piece that we can answer is some of your operational needs and some of your operational preferences, some of the special programs that you're going to continue to offer. As we look at that and wind that into this report, I do feel that you'll be able to make some master facility planning decisions that'll start carrying the school forward. And the other big tricky part will be finding the money to do it. It's very expensive. So
I don't get what you said. With enrollment going down, we may decide to build? Consolidate, yeah.
Yeah, less elementary schools.
Oh, fewer elementary schools and, okay, I see.
And again, that's something we can talk about in more detail at the end. Because I would hope that those types of conversations would open up here at the end of the presentation that we're doing. Before I turn it over, I'm going to let Nick take the middle school. What I just took you through for the elementary schools is pretty much the same process of description that we do at the middle schools. It's even more important to consider what decisions you may want to make at the middle schools. You've got two. There's an opportunity, we believe, to consolidate. There's also an opportunity to do some decisions in regards to major construction. So again, we're hoping that the lists that we're generating for the middle schools and also the high school are going to help the district process those decisions and start moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nate.
So, I mean, John did a good job of starting this off and showing you how this lays out. I'm not going to drag you through looking at all these lists forever, and I'd like to get to the end so we can ask the important questions. But the two middle schools are in very poor condition. I would say the worst in the district. worse than Madison. Here's a few pictures of some of the schools I see. Interesting, we were talking about today, you have 4 of those style lifts in the school district, not a single one works. Lots of asbestos in all of your buildings, most of all of your buildings. Very old electrical systems, very old antiquated HVAC systems. The numbers for the middle school, as you might imagine, get larger and larger as the school square footage increases, but the middle schools are worse off. Many exterior, very poor condition exterior buildings. Yeah, I forgot. We don't, just so you know, at the time of writing this and even today, here's a summary of the elementary schools. We're not done with Washington completely. We're very close on Washington, and I just started Lincoln myself yesterday. So we have a little bit more work to do. Here's a summary table of the 1 to 2, or 3 to 5, 5 to 10 for all of your elementaries and a total elementary number. $58 million of maintenance work, essentially. The next page is the middle school, high school, and your remaining exterior facilities. Washington, Wilson, like I said, I'm at 29.9 on Washington, turning it over to John now, so it's gonna grow some. I don't think it's gonna grow a ton, but a couple of $30 million investments at middle schools. Lincoln, we're just getting into, and then the remainder of your schools for another large number. Looks like this didn't get updated. Sorry about that, I did change it. But that's it, you know.
So your total figure there is all, it's not including your additions, because, you know, the earlier one we sent didn't have Washington, so that's added, but you didn't add it to the total.
So we're at like 110 million and we don't have Lincoln ballpark.
Yeah, 50.
Lincoln's probably gonna be I'm guessing, the most expensive, but.
This is let me get to my next slide. This is a conversation. You know, looking at these numbers and what needs to, you have to put it in the context of the task we were given. We're looking at your existing facilities and telling you what it would take to fix your existing facilities. A lot of cases, you fix a pre-60s, 50s era building. You bring things up to speed, but you're still left with those pre-50s buildings with stairwells everywhere and classrooms that are too big and too small. And to think about investing those kind of dollars in those middle schools, it's not something that I can imagine recommending, but getting on. So next steps is important. This is really what I wanted to get to. So on our end, we need to finish our job. We have to finish Lincoln. We have to produce this report. We have to get it to you. Like John said, I think we're going to end up 350 some pages probably. Has a lot of value, at a very micro level. I tell you that Jackson library carpet is bad. It has a lot of value with similar slides like as this. Going through that process, and John mentioned this earlier, what became really evident really quick, and it was impossible for me to not start thinking this way, but I had to try to stay on the task. What you really need, this is what I think our base recommendation of the night would be, what you really need as a next step is to go into what we call facilities master planning. And I'll take a few bullets to kind of spell out what that may look like. But like John said again too, with this owner's rec contract, if there's a bright side, there's a bright side. We can continue to knock things off with Mike and Mike's staff, with local resources. We can get these highly important safety critical projects done because facilities master planning takes time. And as you see, the first bullet here, create a facilities master planning team and make sure that the site and department-specific stakeholders are heard. It's crucial that when we start to create these teams, I'd be the first person to tell you that I don't like a meeting with too many people in it because you don't get enough done. But if we don't hear from those site folks or from those folks charged with the individual curriculum lead, they're the ones that we have to build something for or create something for that has to meet their needs. So you have to talk this out. On your own plates, the little bit that I know just from being around here in these meetings, you've got crucial things on your plate at the moment that feed directly into facilities management planning. So what's going to happen to McKinley is really important. What's going to happen to SFA is really important. I've mentioned this before. Do we want to be swimming at the middle school level? Do we want to be swimming at the elementary level? Tech ed. We just met with the high school tech ed teacher. We just met with the middle school tech ed teacher an hour ago. Tech ed is in a rough spot district-wide in a community that tech ed should be a kingpin. So all these conversations are something that feeds into the facilities master planning, and they have to, or you won't get what you need. So what comes out of that when you go through that process is you're trying to build a 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20 year facilities roadmap. The slides that I was showing you a few slides ago, huge dollars. This is big stuff. You have a lot of needs. As silly as it sounds, I think the 20-year roadmap is probably a very important piece because I don't think you're going to be able to bite off this whole thing at once. And these questions of, this is all what comes out of that, but somebody mentioned Lincoln. Maybe Lincoln has to stay because it has to stay. Lincoln's in rough shape and it's in a terrible spot. I would recommend building into Lincoln someday, but I don't know that you'd be able to do it because they beat up an entire referendum if that's the direction the district wants to go.
That'd be a real political.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. So the conversations that happen in facilities master planning are this next bullet, and they're those hot button issues where we need to talk this through. But what do you renovate? What do you add on to? Where do you build new? Where do you consolidate? And do you need more land? And some of this, whether it's small or huge, whether we've mentioned Jefferson needing a new cafeteria or needing a cafeteria. A lot of your elementaries are real rough in that spot for space. It's one of the most only elementary real rugged spot for space that you need cafeterias. That would need an architect. We were just at Lincoln, we haven't counted yet, but there's hundreds, I bet you 500 plus windows, and they're giant in Lincoln. It's going to be a very expensive project. Lincoln needs an exterior improvement project, and it's not just windows, it's exterior. It needs a designer. It needs something that you can go out to bid with. So my point being, in that facilities master planning process, architects need to be engaged. So I'm going to let Luke close this out, and hopefully you guys have a lot of questions.
There's been a lot of information thrown at you guys tonight with both presentations here, so I can just imagine everything that's going through. I think a big goal tonight is the numbers, right? And you got an idea and you can see those numbers now. You got something a little bit more tangible. I think the key here is to regroup April. You're going through an election, so some things could change. But when you think about coming back in April, I think a couple of things that we want to look at is thinking about what your team would be as you're looking at those bigger pictures and bigger items here. Because when you look at a timeline, there's going to be several moving parts here, because you guys need to keep in mind your current maintenance needs and you don't want to let those go. And we need to keep moving with those and keeping that updated. But at the same time, you're going to have to keep planning for what that bigger picture is for the district. So looking at that, full report will be ready by April. You guys will have that. You will see that, grade it. There'll be an update with that, but then it really gets into those next steps of who's going to be our team as we start looking at the planning side for a bigger picture. But we also got to keep in mind with that timeline, we got to keep addressing these needs that are with the district so we don't keep getting further behind. one thing I'll leave it before we get into questions is one big step that's very crucial when you're looking at that big next step is I just ask yourselves, make sure the school board, your executive team is all on the same page before we start thinking about that big picture. When we get to April, you'll know who your board is and as we start looking at those next steps. But for those next steps to be successful, we all need to be on same page, coherent. There's a lot here to do. There's going to be a lot to work through here to get to where you need to even get to community involvement before they can start giving you information, give you an idea. Design firm comes on board looking at those middle schools. Let's say we're going to close one and maybe do an addition, or we close both of them. Those options to come up with those take several months to put those together and come up with cost estimates. Then that's where we work with the district and your team to solidify what those options are, to get it to a point where you can start meeting with the community. And that takes, depending on and looking at the size of this, that could be 8 to 10 months before you're even thinking about reaching out to your community with ideas and thoughts, because you got to get your homework and do that and get it in place first. So when I bring that up, I just want to discuss that. Just looking at timeline, depending on whether you're looking at that or when you're looking at that, this process will take a good several months before you're ready to even start getting that information to the community and your ducks in a row. I know it's a ton of information and a lot of information. Can open it up for questions.
Do you have any insights? And my guess is that it probably would be more cost effective to consolidate and build new in some areas, but I guess I really don't know. I'm not a construction guy, but just looking at the cost estimates we have so far, any insights on where it might go as far as the best financial picture?
I think you're going to have a little of both, to be honest with you. I think in some cases, when you get to an age of your buildings that you have now, there's some things that you don't know until you start digging into them. So if you're doing a renovation, all of a sudden you're getting into abatement costs, you're getting into, that's the main pipes that you have in that building. So it can snowball on you when it's a renovation compared to new construction. This is what it costs. This is what we have. Get the utility structures and information that you need there, but it's a little bit more cut and dry compared to a renovation. And with costs right now, a couple other districts that we're working on this planning phase, to give you an idea, to renovate a tech ed and do a little addition, it's cheaper for them to just build a brand new tech ed. And that just depends on utilities and infrastructure, where the location is of that. So to answer your question, it depends. But looking at this, I think you're going to have to consider some new construction. You're going to have to consider some demolition, and you're going to have a lot of maintenance.
That answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just gotta dig into it deeper, right? So it's gonna be a lot of money, right? It sounds like.
Right, and that's where when you get into those next steps and you get into the planning, it really helps to start seeing these options. Because to give you an idea, if you go down the avenue, we're building a new high school, you might be right to your cap right there with what you feel you can go out to the community and ask for. So then you get a new high school, but then you still have all your maintenance needs left with all your other buildings.
And that's something that can't happen.
Or is that something where you're doing an approach with the middle schools and you do a little bit of maintenance with the high school, and then 20, 15 years from now, you're doing a new high school? But I think that's where you're gonna have to get to, is when you're doing your master planning, is get a phased approach of how you're gonna set yourself up for the next 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll talk a little bit. So I want to say thank you, because the whole point of, I wanted to know a true state of affairs, and now we have a true state of affairs. Now we can actually move forward in understanding to have that actual hard conversation that you guys brought up already lightly, but we can actually have those real conversations about the facilities in their true state of where they're at. So it's not so much us just trying to pander or say things that, hey, we need a new middle school, or we need to take care of Madison. Or so now with this report, we can talk to the community, or we can create a team, and we can actually have a plan moving forward, or we can wrestle with a plan moving forward to make those hard decisions. So thank you. Obviously, this is not a fun conversation. However, there's been many men and women before us that just kicked it down the road. So I'm very happy, I'm very proud to be a board member during this time because this is what has to be done. Nobody really likes to talk about it. However, it's the reality, what we're here for. So I want to say thank you. I think what we really need to do is we need to start looking into the facilities and understanding where we should go as a district for a 20-year plan. I think that's exactly where we need to go. However, not forgetting the immediate needs, but we need to have that conversation. And I think that's what we should be doing right now. I know it's not popular. I know it's not in the best interest of everybody here and their political stance or that kind of thing, but I never got into this to be here forever. So, I mean, where is our best facility and where is our worst facility if we just talk about elementary school? Let's start with that. I think you've already said it, but I think it's true to hear objectively from a professional, where should we put our eggs? If you had to make a decision tonight, I'm not saying that we have to, I'm saying that we need to hear it all out loud one more time. Let's start with that, if everybody's okay with talking.
Yeah, it's good.
Go ahead. I'll go. With the elementary schools, I guess we really took the approach of what's the worst of the worst. Because we knew capacity wise what your enrollments were and what your declining enrollments were. So instead of us trying to rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we said, well, we've got room and we've got all these buildings. Which one would we recommend go? And it's Madison.
Okay, so the only thing I didn't like about your assessment is you kind of factored in the cafeterias right off the bat. That kind of throws a wrench in objectively seeing if that's the best solution long-term. But I understand why you did it, so I'm just saying it kind of throws a wrench in understanding the budget. However, it does help for a long-term plan if you plan on keeping that facility.
And again, there's so much detail. It's a cafeteria, but that cafeteria also supports additional meeting space and additional small group activity space that doesn't currently exist. So the space isn't just, we need a cafeteria so we're not sharing the gym while we're feeding. We need a cafeteria for this other multi-purpose, large group, small group, conference room group needs. And you don't need more classrooms, you know, so I'm always fearful that it's just like, well, all they're gonna do is eat in there, it's just a cafeteria, but really the need there for space is in addition to just the eating activity. It's also some of the other conference, small group, multi-purpose type activity space that doesn't exist.
I know this isn't in your purview, but what did you think about with the extra classroom space compared to a new cafeteria? Is there a happy median somewhere where utilizing the full building, however, you still need the additional space for the cafeteria because of the lower numbers, or you try to utilize it by adding classrooms to that school by consolidation? Is that kind of where you would go with that?
We're really not looking at adding a lot of classrooms. We're looking, well, I'll use Jefferson as my hypothetical.
Thank you.
We're short on space in Jefferson as it stands. It's a very
landlocked.
It's landlocked, it's at capacity, and there's missing area to do some of the activity. The cafeteria would take care of that. So that's how it's identified. When we saw that and we also got into the other schools, it was very similar, you know.
Well,
not
Jefferson's kind of an anomaly though because of its footprint compared to the other elementaries because of the land.
It's difficult to add on, yes.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like Stanville, you could easily put a cafeteria on the back where we own all the land. Monroe, there's lots of land. You understand what I'm trying to say? There's more land to use. So I understand where Jefferson is probably, we've made a commitment obviously there and the facility is unfortunately in a small lot. However, we would benefit greatly by having a cafeteria, a multi-purpose cafeteria. We should call it a multi-purpose cafeteria.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying cafeteria.
It's added space, but its primary use would be a cafeteria.
Okay.
And it would take activity away from other areas where right now it's either congested or it's competing. The other piece with Jefferson is it's your new building.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you don't want to pull the chain on the new building.
but it is maxed out for capacity as.
It's full, it's probably one of your fullest
Okay.
elementaries.
Yes.
Could you guys share your opinion on, based on the enrollment that we have and our projections, how many elementary schools would we need? How many middle schools would we need?
The space analysis that we did just identified how many additional classrooms there are based on the current enrollment. So it's kind of looked at it in a different way than you asked your question.
Yeah, we think about it more, of what do you need as far as square footage, or what do you need as far as classrooms? The total from the space study came out to be elementary wide, that it seems as though you have about 14 and a half extra classrooms. That is about, I might not have it in front of me, that is about a Madison, I think. It was close to it, I believe. But
I guess what I'm saying is, according, I mean, kind of thinking along the same lines as Matt is that, could we get away with having, let's just say, 2 elementary schools where we build on to Monroe,
right.
we buy the land at Madison and we build on to Madison and make those schools larger that have enough classrooms and then to run our programs? Could we do that? Would that be not could we, but would that be a viable solution? And financially, again, that's what I'm looking at, is how many buildings do we need to run our district with the numbers that we have? And same way with the middle school.
Yeah.
So we get away with having, you talked about brand new, but could we get away with a one centralized middle school? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
We look at your existing facilities and how to repair them and take care of your deferred maintenance. The example that you gave, again, it's very easy to create a hypothetical out of that. That's more typical as if you had an architectural firm sitting here instead of someone that's also going to look at the opportunity to repair what you already have. So in ease of development, it would probably be easier to do just what you said. Have a couple large elementary schools, build all new. We kind of had a precursor here with your athletic conversation, what the plans were and how easy it would be to just have that money and do it all and turn the key and be done with it. We really looked at, and this is what we do, we look at schools as their function and whether they can be repaired and, essentially recovering and repurposing before you just turn that key and say, we're going to build a new or we're going to add on.
Well, sure, but I guess what I'm hearing is that we can't build a new school and have 2 new schools in the next 5 years, right? So we're gonna have to make a plan on how we're going to upkeep these while the new one is being built or consolidated or added on to, or whatever that may be. I guess what I'm looking for though is, I guess I already know that we need to do that. And so what I'm wondering though is for our enrollment and what we need, how many do we need to have?
The way you're asking the question, the number of schools is somewhat irrelevant. You could build 1 school that's the biggest school you've ever seen in your, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's something of a function of how far do parents have to drive and et cetera.
Okay.
But isn't space influence, behavior? I mean, I went to a high school that bused people in from the whole territory, and it was kind of like going to school in a factory. I mean, it was just always in motion, and it was huge, and it was impersonal, and there was no kind of sentiment connection with a lot of it, and but it probably was cheaper, and that's probably why the school board did that. And so I guess there are a lot of factors, aren't there? It's sort of like, well, you know, we got smaller grade schools on the south side of town. I don't know, you know, they may work better having a number of smaller ones, but God, you know, that's expensive to heat and maintain and all that stuff. So finances and finances in psychology, or finances in, you know, educational environments, they don't seem to be always compatible. I mean, you spend a little bit more money if it's, you know, if it's better for the kids.
I wonder if we couldn't simplify the hypothetical by thinking about just the 2 middle schools.
Yeah.
Now you're only worrying about that variable. Do I have 2 middle schools? Do I consolidate into one, or do I build a new middle school?
Yeah, there's all these other considerations, such as how emotionally attached and identified with are the people who vote here. Because I know, you know, I don't know how many referendums they ran in Two Rivers, but they had a high school that was kind of the Lincoln of a little bit further north, and people just didn't, you know, they just kept voting down, until I think they kind of did smoke and mirrors and got a vote and then built a new high school. And I think most people in Two Rivers now say, oh, wow, it's great to have the new high school. But I think the politics are pretty tough in this town on that.
That's where, when you get into that planning phase and those next steps, you'll get those politics, they'll come out pretty quickly. And whether what that vibe is with Lincoln, and we don't want to touch that, you'll get that quickly. But I think where we're coming here is, there's space here that's available, but you're only gonna be able to reach out to your community for so much. So you gotta start planning for, okay, we got the middle schools here. There's gonna be some room where we can look at the elementary schools, and whether maybe you look at getting rid of Madison and you combine and maybe add a couple classrooms to one elementary school. But there's gonna be 30 of those options that we're gonna be going through, or that you will be going through as you look at those next steps.
We could sell some pretty up-speed real estate there too, in order to raise funds.
Right, yep, and there's all kinds of opportunities like that.
And I don't think there's all that much of an emotional attachment to Madison.
Hey, that was my school.
Oh, it was? Oh, okay, sorry.
That's a beautiful.
I don't want to make you cry.
One part of that conversation with emotional attachment to the schools is, I think if you ask the kids or anybody under the age of 20, they want a new school. It's the people who are paying for it.
I've heard that from students at Lincoln, but boy, I'll tell you, you know, because they don't have a cafeteria that's worth a damn. You know, it's like, I mean, they've said, well, I just think they should build a new school, you know, but they come and go. I mean, I'd like them to be happy and in an environment where they really feel good. But oh, wow, I think the older generations, I mean, it's been written up as the most beautiful high school in the state. You know, with that bowl and that tower and all that. I mean, honestly, it'd be like pulling down, you know.
It's filled with tradition.
It's filled with tradition, yeah. It'd be like pulling down Westminster Abbey, for heaven's sakes, you know?
And that's where you guys have done the first step. Let's find out what we need to do to upkeep these facilities. And then now you have a good idea of what that is. And in April, you'll know more related to the middle schools and the high school. But then that helps you with setting up for those next steps where, okay, we start looking at the middle schools, we start looking at the elementary schools, looking at the budgets and looking at those options. Okay, we gotta maintain this high school for another 15 years. That's right there, we gotta start prioritizing what are the things we're gonna do in that high school. I can tell you, I walked in that high school today for 30 minutes, and there's alarms there that if I was the school board, we need to get these fixed next week. Where you got shop equipment that doesn't have a dust collector that's operating. Those are things that you don't wanna wait any longer. Those are things that you need to be doing. Kids shouldn't be sweeping up sawdust in between classes because the dust collector's not working, but how long do you let that go? So those are the very tough decisions that you're gonna be planning for your future in the next 15, 20 years where you're going, but you also need to keep your buildings and keep your kids safe while you're doing that. So you're gonna have some very tough conversations.
Yeah, you know, there's been such neglect in everything in the school system. I mean, just dealing with the academic program has been, you know, not traumatic, but pretty controversial.
Yeah.
And the politics on that are complicated. And then to say, well, we're gonna close down your grade school. I don't know.
And that,
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, do you think, because I think we're staying up here and it's really big and I kind of want to get down here.
Yeah.
Is there, kind of in working with this McKinley project, would it be beneficial for us to, as a district, look at what is the programming that you want to have? What is the class size you want to have? What are to have the programming that you want, this is what we need, that we have all that set first as a district, so then we can say, this is the kind of building that we need to surround our programming and to surround, because I think that is probably the most important piece, is that we know what we want to run, we know how we want it to run, and so we could create something and be more helpful to you in designing that if we knew this is exactly what we need to have in order to have the best program and the best environment for the kids. So I'm almost wondering if that's what our directors and our leadership need to be talking about. We've talked about, you know, the continuum of services, right? You know, what do we need for special ed? What rooms do we need? How many staff do we need in those? What are small enough classes size for reading and math and all that kind of stuff? So maybe that's where our focus needs to be in administration. And then we can come to the table and look at those sorts of things for the long range plan, while still fixing those things. So I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. It just seems like that might be somewhere where we put this energy.
Yeah.
that's a big start of it, absolutely.
I mean-
It helps you to have that vision of where you want to go. And just because I talked about the tech ed, I'll go back to there, but if you don't have a vision of maybe where you want that to go, it's going to be very difficult to plan where you want to go with that tech ed, rather than getting new equipment and all we got is the space in the back of the wood shop, so that's where we're going to throw it, instead of maybe saying, maybe we need a fab lab, maybe we need to have all that proper equipment in there, and what does that future look like? What do we want to have for a curriculum for our tech ed? But that will absolutely help you get to that next step of, when you do get to a point where the design firm's sitting here, this is what we kind of envision, it will help paint that picture.
Yeah, we need to know, yeah, I mean, honestly, when you talk about tech ed, it's like, that's the industrial revolution we're in now. I mean, we need to be able to project into the future as to what we need. And, you know, I, for one, have got no ideas about that sort of stuff. So we need a lot of help on that, I think.
Well, and I think, I mean, one of the things, and then Biff, you had something,
Yeah.
right? You know, we have a group of, small group, but a group of business people that have been working with the tech ed at the high school, you know, and they envision, you know, Fond du Lac has a tech ed school, right? You know, but is there, I think another thing is being creative on how to outsource, use, you know, maybe Lakeshore Technical College or different things like that, so that we don't necessarily doesn't have to be exactly at Lincoln, right? Is there a common space, common place that we can do some of these sorts of things? But again, I think that, you know, if we say, you know, we want to have the best tech program, these are the things they need, where is that best going to be served? So I think that's just another, we got to think outside the box too about what we have as far as resources. Because I've even heard some of the companies that are out in the industrial park, you know, that have land that would be willing to add on, expand in there to provide that. And so it's a matter of busing kids out there, whatever it may be. So I think that's the other thing that we gotta kind of be thinking about
A
too.
lot of opportunities out there, a lot of schools that work with their local businesses too, where they operate their tech ed as like a business. Took another school through, Aliva Strum, and I don't know if you've heard of their tech department there, but they actually, had a 10,000 square foot shop that was pretty open, and then they just kept getting the equipment that was donated from other, manufacturers and companies that are around the area, and they now, kids, when they're seniors and they graduate, but they have business development, they have marketing, they have engineers, but they run it like a business. And those kids leave that graduating with a scholarship coming out of there. And there's tremendous things to your point of what you can do, and then they can help you with getting equipment for lower cost. But those opportunities for those kids it's endless. Good stuff.
So, listening to the conversation, I'm thinking cheaper, 2 grade schools, 1 on each side of town. But do you want grade schools that big?
That's
You want 1,000 kids in an elementary school? Those are values that we have to talk about, hey, how big do we want these schools to be? Stangl might be in better shape than Madison. However, when Stangl was a grade school, the vast majority of kids that went there were all bussed in because that neighborhood did not have a lot of kids and it wasn't growing. That's where the city thought they were going to go that direction, and it didn't. So you've got a grade school on that end of town that it's now a high school. So you have to study it and go, do you want to sell that and fix the other one because it's got a steady neighborhood and kids are within walking distance of that school? Those are all value judgments we're going to have to make through this process. That, and being somebody that's been here a long time, boy, you're going to have a discussion. Where do you build a middle school? That river has split this community for many, many years, and it's like, so it's so when do those conversations start? I mean, I don't want to say you guys did the easy stuff because you went out and saw the needs, but then when do those community discussions start in this process to say, all right, what do you feel?
I think the community discussions happen after you've set some of the parameters.
So that's where I'm
of your
gonna.
activity, so that you're helping them understand kind of what the hands-off is to run a school.
But the decision's already been made. I don't have any input. Why am I here?
Wow.
That's what you hear.
There's still a lot.
But as soon as you start going out to the community and they start hearing this elementary school is gonna close, or we're gonna do something to this, it's a political nightmare for you guys when there's just a conversation. That's where I was talking to Jim about this, because he was asking, as we look at this and we look at next steps, I know it's exciting, we wanna get that community involved right away, but you gotta have your ducks in a row, and you gotta have with your executive team and your school board with options, and have that narrowed down to this is what our options are, and be able to explain that to the community, then have the community say, I don't like option 1, I don't like option 2, but I really like option 3, and option 4 is a maybe. Then you start going further down, to your point, Stacy, where you can get further down the tunnel. But right now, the biggest key is your financial piece. You start there, and then you're gonna be able to find out what you put into it. Because when you start talking about maybe potentially a new school, $400 to $500 a square foot, to give you an idea. So you're 200 million, you'll get there very quickly.
But what you said was so important in that options. You're not saying this is what we're doing.
Right.
Here's 5 different options we can do.
Exactly.
So there is a decision-making process within the voting community.
Yeah, so when you start here, I'll come to you, Matt, but you start when you get that financial piece and kind of, we can't do 300 million because we know that's gonna be too much for the community. All right, then you got a starting point, you can start working down. And whether that's 150 million, whatever that is, then you can start getting your options together before you start reaching out to your community. Yes, ma'am.
So that's why I said thank you in the beginning of this conversation, because now we have definitive evidence to bring to our community saying, hey, $60 million needs to be invested at Washington and Wilson. Okay, so now we have a number that we can use to understand the scope of what the problem is. And now we can say, community, do we want to continue to go with those facilities? Or do we want to think about trying to combine those facilities? And then that's where the tensions can kind of be relieved a little bit, because there's decision-making going on, instead of just a tyrant telling you, hey, we need to close this school and we need to build a new one. So that's why this was so important to do this. And that's why I'm very proud to be a part of the board that's actually taking this on. And how we take that on is we need to have a conversation about the middle schools and we need to have a conversation about the elementary schools. What we're going to do. And I love Stacy's idea of understanding that, you know, Lincoln is kind of landlocked as well. And maybe we need to outsource with other properties that we own or we build to meet the needs of the curriculum so that every student is successful in our district and it becomes a destination district. So all these things are very important and this is why we're here. We're not going to just try to shove something through. This conversation is vetted now. We have evidence of what things cost. We just have to make those conversations known to people and we can have answers for them now saying, well, you just want to spend $100 million on a new middle school. Well, the return on the investment might be better, would be better than just spending $60 million on 2 existing buildings. And I understand the north and south side, but at some point in time, like you said, now I'm not about the smoke and mirrors that you said about Two Rivers, but I am about having transparency to say, hey, maybe it's better that we move forward in a different direction for our middle schools or our elementaries. Like I liked having small elementary schools. However, maybe and I loved your idea about Madison, how maybe we focus on, because there's more people around that area than Stangl, because the north side is kind of being taken by Two Rivers. So all those things, exactly. But as a board is what they're trying to say, we have to put the fires out on the political side because otherwise we're just going to start eating each other apart and we ain't going to get anything. And everybody's going to get burnt out. So that's why I'm completely here to try to make the best path forward, and I will continue to hear everybody's opinion. But I don't want to become politicized because I have an opinion that isn't contrary to some people's beliefs.
Well, you have to be real smart about the politics.
We have to be honest.
Just to remind you, like, of how difficult they are, all I have to do is say courthouse and two-way streets on 8th and 10th. I mean,
Don't forget the Budweiser mural.
don't forget the Budweiser mural, yeah.
So can we, as a board, I mean, I feel like, would it be reasonable to give the directive to our superintendent, our directors to kind of do a visioning or something in that respect?
I think that would be a good idea.
Look at our programming, what do we need? How many classrooms, what are the services? And I guess I feel like first pie in the sky, you know, if it was everything that you wanted as far as the programs exactly how you wanted, special ed exactly how you wanted it. What would that look like? What would we need to run our programs the way we want to? And so that we can then give that to our planners and say, can you give us a couple options? This is what we'd like to do. Would that work?
Are you guys involved in the planning? Because that would, we're kind of the purview of what we hired you for has to end. Now, are you available for the next step of what we just talked about, master plans?
One of our tasks as owner's representative is to consider getting involved with the designer so that some of this preliminary work can get done. It's, again, talking about the baseball field, you can kind of use that almost as an example where they reached out, they worked with Rettler, and they nailed down a couple very tight budgets as to what they need. You know, things like, you know, the stormwater, the sewer system there is a big question. And to start talking about doing the baseball field and not taking care of that problem, it's crazy. The way you know how to take care of that problem is to have that professional designer involved that understands Manitowoc and understands that concern. We're saying the same thing with these building considerations. We want to start the Jefferson example. If we put a multi-purpose room with a cafeteria in it there, we would want it to be designed and have 6 options of what your design could be. 6 different costs. Hopefully, with the administrative group, they would be able to operate or put best practice around that design so that it was creating some operational efficiencies or better educational outcomes, something like that. And operational efficiency is one that I look at because I come from maintenance. That's my background. You know, I'm thinking of the tech ed as an example. You got 3 tech ed rooms and all 3 of them have failed equipment and non-functional stuff. If I had 2, I could maybe maintain at least 75% more of that equipment than it would be running. It just seems like there's an operational cost too that you're gonna get some synergy from as that team develops those parameters and you make those decisions. And that would be good to do for everyone.
Well, yes, man, we can help with that. The ownership is helping through that. I think to Stacy's point, we can help you get to that next step though, very similar to like your baseball field and reaching out to Rettler. I think that design firm and next step, they can start giving you a conceptual idea of, okay, a new middle school would cost this. A new elementary school would cost this. And then that really helps you think about those next steps and where you want to go. And then you start putting the budget to that. Then it really helps you narrow that funnel down really quickly because you're starting to talk about a new middle school. For example, I think you're getting to that 200 mark, you're going to have very little maintenance then that you're going to have to do if you're doing a new middle school. So that's where we got to look at those and have those tough conversations.
My concern right now, right at this moment is, advise us, should we put money into Madison for this summer? I mean, should we be spending on stuff that
Yeah.
we may just plow under, you know?
It's a very good question. I mean, Madison's its own animal because it's so small. So it's a harder question to ask than if you would ask about some of the other poor schools. There's things that you have to do to any school that honestly aren't getting done across the district. When your roof's leaking, it's got to get fixed today because mold is gonna, that's true, you're gonna have a problem. So things like that, safety issues where you've got them and something's gonna happen again, you've got to do that. So the facilities master planning process, I think within a 12 months, 8, whatever, could tell you how fast can we get out of Madison if we're gonna get out of Madison. That would help that, answer that question quickly.
So one of my concerns is that if we have things that need to be done, shouldn't we be focused on fixing those things ASAP? And will the rest of this process, I don't want that to slow us down because there are safety issues or there's electrical or there's things that we need to get fixed to make the school safer and a place where kids can still learn until that bigger decision is made.
That's exactly what the conclusion we came to in January.
Oh, okay.
And that's why last month, we wanted to get moving on that owner's rep so that we could start nailing down those critical items so we could get some of them done this summer. We kind of ran out of time, you know, it's March. A lot of these projects, we would typically recommend, you know, getting proposals and bids in November or December. And availability of materials and contractors is not you know, it's not ready-made. It's not happening quick. So that's what we did. We kept pushing and Mike helped us through. We went through these lists and said, what could your guys do? What could your guys do? What do you need help with? And we peeled some of those off. The conclusion was most of the work that we're recommending, just so we're not doing something that gets plowed under, is Jefferson. There's enough there as a filler outside of those immediate safety things that need to be taken care of right away, that you've spent your budget. It's gone. You know, so if we get good pricing and we're able to execute, or if we've got measures we can't do because there's no availability, we've got another measure we can go after this summer. And next summer, we'd like to be a little bit more strategic and start that process early for 2025.
And you got to keep in mind, depending on your timeline and when you go out to a bigger picture, whether it's a referendum, you're talking probably at least 3 years before you're starting that construction, depending on when you do a referendum. So potentially before you move into that building, it could be 4 to 5 years. So there's a lot of those items where, yeah, maybe one of those middle schools is still going. We should probably update that dust collecting system. You can always take parts of that and move it, but there's going to be certain things that you're going to have to do just because of safety wise. But yeah, that's part of that planning piece, and you're going to have planning for your projects that you need to get done in the next 3 years, and then you're going to have your planning for the big picture.
Future.
Wow, okay.
For the enrollment of the middle schools right now, can you forecast the square footage need if we combine it? Because I don't want to just take the 2 square footages and add them together, because that's
No,
probably not feasibly correct.
No, it's not. And I've been doing a lot of it. He's been slapping me to stop doing what I'm not being paid for. A lot of it's spread over the past couple months, but I was just thinking 200 sounded good because you've essentially got 2 150s at the middle school. 200,000 square foot.
200,000.
But that's what that means is facilities master planning. We do a process called programming. We've got 6 Spanish classes and 10 math, et cetera. Then we know exactly what size we need.
Your square footage.
100 million. That's my answer.
Your square footage can be.
That's what I
right
just
now.
did. Okay.
But I see where you're going with
Yeah.
your math, yes.
Angie, or Angela?
I was just gonna mention too, that part of our coordinating with the planning for the financials is building like $1.5 million already, or actually 2 million we identified, and then 1.5 million for projects that they will focus on. Is that you build that into the budget for next year, and so they talk about the timelines for securing contractors, especially because of the time frame we're on right now. We have the ability anytime we to move money from the regular budget into Fund 46, and then the next year you could, we could maybe, let's say we have to move $500,000 over to Fund 46, and then we can do $2.5 million next year. So we have some flexible tools. I've been in touch with Baird Financing, Mike Clark, who you guys met in fall, and to look at what would, different levels of borrowing look like. And there's definitely a lot to consider. I was gonna also mention though, just because it seemed like there might be a little bit of a gap, that we did have some meetings, not detailed about like what would a new tech ed wing look like or something like that, but we did have some preliminary meetings before we set them sort of loose in the schools to look at things about what kind of our vision was. So that's where some of like the cafeteria area, just to meet the needs of the current programming, came from. I didn't know if that was helpful, So, I mean, there would definitely be more detailed discussions for sure as you get further down the path. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I feel like we need to do something rather than wait. So I'm just
We are doing
wondering,
so. That's why we had them with the agreement.
right, I'm just wondering from now until our study is done, is there some other things that we can be doing as a district to be ready for sitting down and doing some of these other things?
I think you're gonna get a change, or depending, you might not have a change, but I think April, you're gonna know who your team is. That's a start for number one. Who's our team, planning, setting up those next steps. But I think the budget and what Angela's putting together there, once you guys get your team and you start getting into the next steps of the planning side of it, it'll start to fall in place for you. Where I think it's good to have a vision, tech ed, where you wanna go, and you can start thinking about those things. But your target, it's a moving target right now, and depending, you don't know what your budget is or what you can go to the community. So I hate to send you on a path where you're gonna go do a bunch of work where your high school could be there for the next 20 years. And we're replanning to do something at the high school where we're doing middle school projects, or vice versa, where maybe you're demoing a couple elementary schools and you're adding on to a couple, and maybe you're keeping one of your middle schools. There's so many different options out there. As Matt was just doing the quick math on a new middle school, it adds up quickly.
Stacy, the work that, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
The work that you mentioned, 15 minutes ago, about visualization sessions and how tech ed may look, the conversation you're having about McKinley right now, what's SFA going, those aren't wasted energy no matter how this looks. So that's really good information to eventually have. Stengel is by far biggest inefficient use of space in the district, and I didn't really realize that it may not be conducive to a neighborhood. I look at it from a facility standpoint. I want it because there's a whole bunch of room there, and we could put a whole bunch of kids there, but.
See, when he was doing the middle school, I'm thinking, okay, there's roughly 400 kids a year graduate from the high school. So if I look at Wilson and Washington combined, that'd be about 1,200 kids in a middle school. You know, somebody who taught middle school, I don't know if I'd survive.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It starts getting to be a large middle school. So, I mean, those are other decisions and value judgments we have to make.
Yeah.
It's gonna be easy.
We also have to involve the people that are in those buildings too. And we need to, you know, see what, what their wish list is and what they really think.
Wilson and Washington, the last few years has been just under 1,000 combined.
Thank you.
I was just going on high school graduation.
Yeah.
It's about 400 a year.
It's declining. It's
Yeah, there
declining.
you go. That's 200 kids right there.
Yeah.
It's because it's going out.
How much are we going down?
He was right, about 400 to what, 450 at the most, probably?
It's closer to 350 now.
It goes, yeah. I think last year it was 390 officially.
Oh,
But we have to be stewards of knowing that our class sizes are getting small.
yeah, just last night we were talking about how to get recruit more students to come to the Manitowoc School District. I don't know how that works.
Okay, well, does anyone have any other questions or?
I just don't want to get caught where Stevens Point is, UW Stevens Point, honestly. I mean, you know, it shrunk by half and didn't do anything about it.
Do you guys need anything from us?
I don't know, I think you guys are really smart. I mean, I'm pretty impressed with, you know, all the sorts of things you can think about. And some of them are really new to me, but obviously you've lived with them a long time, so.
Nope, we appreciate your time. We'll get the reports and get that sent when it's ready electronically, so you guys have time to read the 300+ pages when it's ready, but we'll regroup in April and go through it again, and we'll just keep going through next steps. And
You're gonna send us 300 pages on that?
it's a PDF.
300+.
Okay,
My eyes will
thank you
be- my
guys,
eyes will be
appreciate
done.
it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Yeah, really, thanks a lot. I mean, it gave us like more than.
Just a couple things, our next, just make sure early voting started, so make sure everyone votes, April 2nd, voting day. Our next meeting is going to be on April 9th at 6 o'clock, right? Okay, so our regular meeting. And have a great spring break, everybody. Take much needed time off and enjoy. Hope everyone's doing something fun, and our students and staff. And anything else you guys want to order? Okay, I've looked for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second by Tony. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, all right, we are adjourned, 8:25.
From the secret, early next week.
Did the interview go well today?
You know, the ES meeting.